we have to face now not one, but two great transformations: the digitalization of the economy and the green transition. All actors, economic, social, and political, are challenged to exploit the great potentials of digital technologies and to promote sustainable growth. For this, I think that there is the need of a combined action by government and social partners, directed to promote these two goals, which are decisive for the future of the world. Here are some priority policy choices for government. One, promote basic digital education, beginning from childhood. Support technical and scientific programs in secondary and tertiary education. Both these tracks are particularly efficient in Italy. Two, provide efficient and accessible infrastructures, material and digital, to enterprises and households. Three, support with targeted incentives, vocational training and lifelong learning, finalized to match the needs of new digital skills. Four, support with incentives and services, both are necessary, particularly SME, in adopting the new models of work organization and of production, which are necessary to maximize the use of digital technologies. Finally, promote closer relationship of enterprises and employers associations with universities and research centers in order to favor technological transfer and diffusion of organizational best practices. These policies are, in fact, part of the Italian program called Industry 4.0, which has been adopted by the government after consultation with the social parties, following the EU guidelines. I stress the fact that we need to have these policies to go together. That is, particularly innovate in the application of technologies, in the models of work organization and of production, and in the training and reskilling of employees. I repeat, the three must go together to be successful. Then, since the digital technologies are pervasive, horizontal, we need to have equally pervasive implementation of the policies. For this reason, the role of the social partners is fundamental, not only for the shaping of reforms and of the legislation, but also for securing a successful application of these guidelines and regulations in the different work environments and indeed in the daily life of the enterprises. Social dialogue between the parties and the government has been practiced in Italy, although with different intensity, in most of the issues concerning labor, employment, and economy, beginning with the Industry 4.0 program, as I said before. The same issues are now the object of collective negotiation among the social partners, both at the national industry level and at the enterprise level. The Italian labor unions, is important to notice, have changed their attitude towards digitalization from the initial resistance to a full acceptance. The new attitude is well expressed by the sentence which is often quoted: negotiate the algorithm, which means that the unions should be engaged in informed bargaining in order to anticipate and govern change rather than simply resist or adjust to its effects. Many cases of this kind of anticipatory bargaining are reported, particularly in technologically advanced enterprises, Italian and multinational. These collective agreements are often implemented through various forms of workers' participation, for instance, bilateral committees and the like. This practice of bilateral committees is significant because it marks a change with respect to the traditional Italian industrial relations, which are not really participatory, but rather adversarial. Here too, the change of practice towards participation has been favored by the Italian government, mainly by granting fiscal advantages to collective agreements which adopt productivity bonus and welfare benefits. And on top, these advantages have been increased when the negotiation is implemented through bilateral forms of workers' participation. The best cases of collective negotiation combine the promotion of new forms of work organization like teamwork, flexible working hours, with programs of training and retraining, specifically linked to digitalization. A major innovation in this area has been introduced by the National Metal Workers Agreement of 2016, which has recognized an individual right to training to all workers, 24 hours on top of other benefits. And this training can be implemented during working time. Similar provisions are being adopted in other national collective agreements, and now are being discussed in the round of negotiations which are in progress, even in the difficult conditions caused by the emergency COVID. Finally, I notice that a major problem of these practices is that they are not generalized. They are adopted only in some part of the Italian economy. Therefore, in order to help an effective transition to digital manufacturing, a common purpose of the social partners and the government should be to generalize precisely the application of good practices in all companies and work sites. Meeting the challenge posed by the new technologies requires a major change in two directions: in the business culture and in work organization. In a great part of Italian companies, particularly SME, which are still structured according to traditional business models. Two, a parallel effort is necessary in order to update the culture and the skills of the workforce. Again, particularly of the middle-aged employees who are usually only with a low level of school education and have often been granted scarce continuous training. The national program Industry 4.0 mentioned above has promoted and contributed to finance many initiatives by companies, usually in agreement with workers' representations, towards both of these objectives, namely programs directed to modernize work organization, make better use of new technologies, innovate in productive processes, all with the view of increasing productivity and the quality of work. A second objective, which has been pursued, is to update precisely the skill of the workforce in line with the needs of the digital economy. The major employers association, beginning with Confindustria and the Rete Impresa Italia, have been active in the creation and diffusion of so-called digital innovation hubs or centers aimed at increasing the awareness of these changes among their members and at spreading best practices in the two directions mentioned above. The most important labor unions have also taken various initiatives, making better use of digital technology in their organization, improve the digital culture of their negotiators, and diffuse the awareness of the potential of new technologies for the future of work. In addition to adopting more courses for the students in the scientific and technological areas, more investments by the social partners should be directed to lifelong learning, reskilling part of the present workforce. Particularly in Italy, this effort is important because the percentage of workforce actually involved in continuous training is far below the average, the European average. And large part of the courses are shaped according to old-fashioned pattern. The social parties have an instrument which can be used, the bilateral funds which are active in the field of continuous training, but these funds must too renovate their techniques and contents of training to match the new needs. In fact, some pilot agreements indicate this road, and they, in quite a few enterprises, they provide training programs covering not only technical matters, but soft and cognitive abilities linked to digitalization. A recent Act 34 of 2020 has created a special fund aimed at supporting new skills of the employees by devoting part of the working time to specific training. The parties are taking the opportunity of this fund, and this may be particularly useful during this emergency of the pandemic. We don't know the developments of this emergency, but certainly it is due to accelerate change in many aspects of working life. Consequently, it will also increase the need of training and of new ideas to adapt work organization to the changing environment. Human resource practices will also need to be changed in many areas. For instance, for improving health and safety of the employees in the enterprises, experiences new forms of mobility and new regimes of working time. Thus, smart working is an important example. From a limited experiment, it has become a common, even prevalent method of work organization, which may be here to stay. Its impact on productivity and quality of work will depend on its use. Best practices report that it may be not only a simple decentralization of work to the employees' premises, but an opportunity to reshape the relationship between the individuals, employees, and the structure of the company, to allow more room to the autonomy of the employees and more flexibility to the organization of production. The impact of these changes is still not defined because many variables are uncertain. The evolution of the technologies and also the consequences of the pandemic. But certainly they will greatly influence the future of work and of business. For this reason, social dialogue is more necessary than ever to facilitate the management of uncertainty and the acceptance of change by people.